You're listening to the All Systems Go podcast, the show that teaches you everything you need to know to put your business on autopilot. Learn how to deploy automated marketing and sales systems in your business the right way with your host, the professor of automation himself and founder of Automation Bridge, Chris Davis.
Welcome to the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, founder of Automation Bridge, an online publication for small business automation. In this episode, I want to cover the performance metrics of email marketing. If you haven't listened to the previous episode number 22, I highly recommend that you listen to that before listening to this one, because it's a correlation. I battled between which one to record first and publish first, and I think it works out better this way. So this one is going to rely on some of the content that I've covered in episode number 22. So make sure that you go and listen to that one, preferably before this one. But many people look for what a good open rate is or how much they can expect to generate from email. I find a common theme people are trying to figure out: how beneficial can email be for me? Right. And of course, it's all subjective to your business goals and your marketing, the effectiveness of it, your messaging and all that. But I'll share some benchmark metrics and performance I've witnessed over the years, over my professional career of marketing at a high level, just so you can kind of start wrapping your head around it. Because what I see most people often do is you treat email as a checkbox. And email is far more important than a checkbox. But without understanding how to properly leverage it, that was the previous episode. OK, once you know how to leverage it, now you need to do some expectation setting. So that's what we're going to do in this episode. Before we get started, though, if you're new to the podcast, first off, hello. Thank you for listening. Make sure you listen to this episode in its entirety. And when you're finished, please subscribe. Subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and review if you like what you heard. If you're a longtime listener that just hasn't subscribed, please make sure you subscribe to the All Systems Go podcast. We're in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. The All Systems Go podcast is there. So remember, your 5-star rating and review is greatly appreciated. I want to read a review from Go Gators 12. And it says, "A gold mine of marketing knowledge, !" Chris is amazing, ! I learn something new from him every time. I love the way Chris communicates marketing system building. He's someone that I trust to bring the latest and greatest when it comes to building a successful online business. I highly recommend his podcast to anyone looking to create effective marketing systems. Go Gators 12. Greatly appreciated. Thank you. And thank you all who are listening and are going to take me up on my request that you leave a 5-star rating and review. Thank you in advance for that. So let's get into the meat of this. There's a bit of a lot to cover. This may get technical. I don't think it will, but we'll see where we end up. Let's start with the basics. Is email an effective channel? Hands down, yes. Again, in the previous episode, I detail how and why. But let me put it like this. Email is not going anywhere, and you don't want it to. I believe it's going to evolve and again, emerge as a new, it give life to an old channel. I believe that is the case. But listen, email is here to stay. You just need to know how to make the shifts and be dynamic to understand how to utilize it. OK. So what's good performance? That's what we're here for. Let's do some expectation setting. I need to defend the email here because a lot of you are out here. You're treating email badly, man. You're doing email wrong. You're disregarding it. You're so quick to throw it out, and you're not doing your due diligence. Can we say that on the All Systems Go podcast? Can I indict you for not treating email right? Maybe you're the abuser. Email's not the underperformer. You are. No, let me, I'm going too far now, right? But you get it. Let's talk about the performance. So what brings us, when we start to talk about performance, I think of performance indicators of email. And they're really 3 indicators in like one thing. So the 3 indicators and one theme of highly performing email. One indicator is opens. That's a good indicator. The next is clicks. That's a better indicator. And then the third is replies. That's the best indicator. And an indicator of what? That goes into the theme. Remember, 3 indicators and one theme. That theme that they all speak to is deliverability. The theme of landing. What is the potential that the email that you just sent will land in the inbox? And here's what's crazy. And by inbox, I mean the spam, not in the spam, or the promotions are not delivered at all. Right. And here's what's crazy. Email deliverability is so random. I don't know if you all have noticed this. It started at lead pages. I started to see it and I was like, wait a minute, it's still happening. G apps, Google Suite, the G Suite now is what it's called. A lot of times, like, my website is automationbridge.com. So if I had Susan at automationbridge.com emailing Larry at automationbridge.com, the same domain, it's owned by Google. You think Google will respect it? A lot of times those emails go to spam. So what we're saying, I shouldn't say a lot of times, but there are times where you have to check your spam. You're like, dude, I emailed you yesterday. You're like, no, you didn't. It's from the same domain. That should be a white list just by default, but it ends up going into the spam. Maybe that's a fault on Google's side, but I haven't seen it fixed. But it just goes to show you, even personally sending an email is different. Just sending a one-on-one. Right. So deliverability is huge. And just so you know, many of you who are listening, you're on a shared server. And that just means your performance could be impacted positively or negatively by the sending behavior and habits of others. OK, but if you send good emails that get engagement over time, you'll find that you will find the server that you're on would be of higher quality. And you won't have many issues getting your emails delivered because the inbox is like Yahoo, Google, Outlook, who else? Wherever you're checking emails, Apple, their built-in mail program. They're all looking. They don't know anything. They don't know how people would respond to this email, so they're a little skeptical. Like, should I put this in the inbox? Because their reputation is on the line. Because they want to protect you from being spammed. Okay. So as long as they see engagement, they open something. They always click emails that come from Chris. They replied, right? You're training the system. It's like AI needs information to make the decision for you. Okay. And the last note around deliverability is it's important to note that landing in the inbox, it does become harder the larger your list size, especially depending on the ESP you're using, or I should say the marketing platform that you're using. Some just don't do well with big numbers at all. I will say this, and it's a little dated because I haven't used this platform in a while, but I feel like it's still accurate. I have no hard data, which is hard for me to be like, this is accurate, right? Without data. But HubSpot did really well in the past when I had a list size approaching 1 million or so. HubSpot did good. And when I say did good in terms of landing in the inbox, as well as the speed of sending, Infusionsoft at that same time, it could take up to 2 hours to send an email to, over 250,000 contacts at Infusionsoft at the time. I don't know what it is now, but this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Right. So list size is important to keep in mind in terms of how it affects deliverability. And this is why keeping your list clean is of utmost importance. Some of you don't do any form of list cleansing at all. But clean lists unlock email marketing's full potential. And in fact, all of the numbers I'm giving you today that we'll go through are really going to be based on like a okay to dirty list. Right? Like some smudges or just flat out dirty. It's never been cleansed. And when I say cleanse, what I mean is removing people who are not engaging. Now, again, this is why at the very beginning, I said this is going to be subjective. It's going to be relative to your business. Every business is different. So, and it's relative to your sending frequency. So some of you send emails every week. So after 3 months, they've received 12 emails. Whereas somebody who sends monthly, after 3 months, they've only received 3 emails. So now what if you just blindly take somebody else's strategy and say, hey, after 3 months, boot them off your system? Well, the person who was mailing every week is in a much better position for that data to be accurate than the person who's mailing monthly. So a lot of times when I look at list cleaning, I like to look at how many emails do I want somebody to receive and not engage with before I remove them. Then that will set the time frame. Okay, that's just a little quick tip there. I had not planned on giving that to you. So there you go. All right. So those indicators those are the indicators. And so right now, I'm just trying to think in my head. I can see it. I'm just trying to see how to explain it. After the indicators, there's categories of sending emails. Okay. And these emails can be manual or automated, and the types of email that you send will fall into these categories. So I'm using categories because I don't want to get into all the different types of emails that you can send, because, oh my gosh, that could be an episode in itself. So I want to go top level, the categories of sending. Okay, so the first category is the broadest cast email, not broadcast. Those are dead. Broadcast emails are dead. If you are still mailing your entire list a broad message, stop it. You're on timeout. Go sit in the corner. You let somebody else operate your business. You go sit in the corner. Do not turn around. Don't look at us. Don't you look at us, good business owners, responsible business owners. You are on timeout. You go in that corner. We'll let you know when you come out. And when you come out, you know what? You better get your act together. No more broadcast emails. So broadest cast emails, they're going to traditionally get the lowest engagement. Okay. So that's one category. Okay. This is email to a wide audience. Then we have targeted, also known as segmented sending. This is based on behavior, actions, or attributes that you've collected or observed, right? This is going to get you your highest rate. And in this segmented sending is where you find most of the most effective emails of today. So when you think of transactional emails, that is a segmented email, because only people who have purchased a product get that receipt or whatever is following that. It's a targeted email. Okay. The third one is ongoing. And this with ongoing, you'll see a drop over time. I'll talk about this dynamic later, but you'll see the more emails you send, the lower the engagement goes, just because people lose interest, right? There is ways to get the interest back by using other channels. But however, just know if you've got some type of nurturing emails that are going out over time, I've heard the term indoctrination, if you're doing that over time, just know people that the engagement is going to drop. Okay, so those are the three categories. Every email that you send is going to fall in one of those categories. I hope that most of them fall in category 2, which is segmented sending. That's where you're really going to see the highest ROI for email. Okay, so I talked about, the third one, ongoing, and how it drops over time. How do segmented emails, why do they perform so well? Why not broadcast? Well, let me explain some of the expectations or what you can expect from email, and maybe that'll start answering some of these questions, right? Because there's 5. There's 5 pointers, whatever you want to call it, right? 5 things to expect from email performance. And one is the first email always sets the ceiling. Okay, think of this as your first impression. You've seen the commercial, you never get a second chance at a first impression. Well, that's true in email. If you come out the gate just weak, you send a terrible email, the subject line is off and everything, whatever engagement you get there, hey, it ain't getting no better than that. You're like, I only got 3%. Well, that's the max you're going to get. Right. And this is upon entry the first email somebody receives upon entering your database. Now, if they enter through another means, that's a separate enter, and that you now have a chance to make another impression, but in a different pathway or funnel. Okay. So list growth has a direct impact on deliverability. We mentioned that. I mentioned that earlier. The bigger your list, especially if you're not cleaning it, it's actually has a lower impact if your list is growing, if you have a clean growing list. But if not, if you just got a overall list, you're going to see your deliverability be impacted by that. Imported leads are the fastest path to spam or getting banned. The young Chris tried this. I didn't understand deliverability, the performance of marketing. I didn't know what to expect with email marketing. So I was working with a friend, and he had all these email addresses in a sheet that he had put into an Excel sheet. And he was like, "Hey, can we upload these and just start mailing people?" And I'm young in my career. This was over 10 years ago. And I'm thinking, sure, they've got so many platforms that can do this. And eye contact at the time was like, it must have been more free than MailChimp, because for whatever reason, I didn't use MailChimp. I went with eye contact. I think it's because I could import without double opting in. MailChimp used to be very strict back in the day. So I did it. I import all these leads, sent out this email. This was historic. Within like an hour, I got banned from eye contact. Couldn't even log in. Like they were, you talk about banned. It was just like, you guys see those shows where the person gets kicked out the club and then they slam the door shut and they're just left in the alleyway. They can't get back in the club. Well, I guess I'll smoke a cigarette on my way home. Like that type of scene. That's what it was. It was just like, boom, get out. Your login doesn't work and you can't create another account. So imported leads are the fastest way to get that to happen. If you want to damage your sending reputation, just import a list of leads. Take a CSV, an Excel sheet, import people that you've never emailed before and just start emailing them. That's the fastest way to destruction. So the flip side is, do not do that, right? There's nothing wrong with emailing people that you import, but you have to make sure that in that account that you're using, you at least have some history of engagement with other contacts so that the new leads can borrow that reputation. Okay, there's a whole process to that, right? Good subject lines get more opens. Good content gets more clicks. You need both. Open is half the battle. The click is where the magic happens, right? Or reply. And then email format depends on audience. Okay. The key, depending on regardless of what audience you're in, keep the email small. And when I say small, I mean small in size. Don't use big images. You know, your images, if you're calculating the size of your email, man, first off, you should never have an email that's a megabyte or bigger sent through a marketing platform. Okay. 2 is if you could keep it under 100 kilobytes, you know, like, man, that would be perfect, because it's almost small enough to look like a text base, but there's images in there. I say all that to say, just make sure you watch the size of your images, because what Google is known for, well, Gmail is not the only one. Outlook, like the actual Microsoft Outlook that you put on your computer, not Outlook.com that you log in, but the actual Office Suite app. It's also known for truncating messages. So if your message is too big, it'll chop it off and they'll only see a little bit of it. So the goal is to communicate quickly in email. You don't want a long email, not until they evolve the medium and you could perhaps make emails are more interactive. But you know, you want to be able to keep it relatively small. Okay. So those are tips on what to expect to affect your numbers. So those are 5, you know, what to expect that will affect your numbers. Remember, your first email is the most important, the highest engaging. List growth is a direct impact on deliverability. Imported leads need to be handled with care. Good subject lines get opens, good content gets the clicks and replies, and email format depends on audience, but keep it small. Okay, keep it small. So with that being said, I want to share with you all what I've seen personally with not just my marketing, but with other companies that I've worked with, worked for, consulted, So what I'll do is I'm going to add 3 links to the show notes, everybody, because I don't want you to just take my experience. But when I walk through these 3 links, they showed the same thing. So I'm even more confident in my experience now. All right. So I'll give you the 3 links in a minute, but let me just talk about the things, the performance that I've witnessed. And that's a 50 to 86% open rate on the first email. If it's dropping below 50%, and it's the first email, this means their intention is at its highest, right? They saw something that you had to offer and they were interested enough to put in their email address. And upon the receipt of the first email, they don't engage. Something was off there, whether it's the subject line or it's how you're framing it on your website. Something is wrong, because I usually see a 50 to 86% open rate on that first email, which is a good ceiling to set, right? If it's going to drop over time, you need that ceiling as high as possible. Okay. Broadcast email or broadest cast emails usually perform at or below 25%. If you can send a broadcast email and get above 25%, I would argue that's probably more targeted than broadcast, right? Like, I'm just not seeing people sending to hundreds of thousands of people and just like, well, look, if this is you, or, if you would like this, and hey, so-and-so, hey friend. I'm just not seeing that performance. Email engagement from advertising at or below 15% open rate. That means if you're running advertising on Facebook, you drive them to a landing page, they opt in on the landing page, the probability that they interact with those emails is about a 15% or below open rate. What I've seen, everybody. I guess I should qualify small businesses under 100 million, service-based, professional services, have some form of information selling component, right? And looking to leverage online for marketing. So those are the businesses I'm speaking of. Software, they've created our own software. Okay. Targeted emails. So remember, we said broadcast emails normally are like 45% or so. 25% or lower. Targeted emails, you can see like 38, 40% and up. These are targeted emails. So if there's behavior that somebody did and you respond to that behavior via an email, you're going to see higher open rates. And then click-throughs are probably the hardest, because to get an email click, there's so much you have to do right? You got to frame it on the messaging on your landing page, as well as the advertisement that's sending them to the landing page. It's got to be clear there. Once they opt in, effective use of the thank you page, and then the subject line. Right? If the subject line, it doesn't do it, they're not going to open, then they don't even have a chance to click. So a click and a reply is further down the line. And a good measure, like a good benchmark just to keep in mind, is like 10% of whatever your open rate is. So if you got a 30% open rate, expect a 3% click through. And I'm talking about broad, because this is one where I haven't seen anything consistent depending on the various brands. Myself, I will always get double-digit clicks. I've never gotten single-digit clicks in my personal business I'm talking about. But I by no means am projecting that on you and saying that that's what you have to do, right? At the end of the day, the main metric is revenue. Right? Like if you've got a lower open rate and you're making money, There's something to be said that if you increase the open rate, you could be making more money. But there's also something to be said with how well your email marketing is working. Okay. So those are, if you're new or if you just needed to get you wrap your head around, what should I be expecting, in terms of a performance for email? Definitely the first red flag is if that first welcome email that they receive after they've showed intent and downloaded some or requested information and they're not opening that email, fat chance. I mean, it's very much like a relationship. How you start it is usually how it goes, right? Unless some major event intervenes. But you start talking to somebody and your first conversation, all they're doing is lying to you. Pretty sure that's going to be the case throughout the timeline of that relationship. Again, unless some unaccounted for event happens. And that happens in marketing, right? People can be disengaged with your email, and then you have a really big Facebook Live engagement. And then all of a sudden your email engagement goes back up, right? So you're going to have that as well. This is another reason why we need to embrace the multi-channel marketing, because a rising tide lifts the boat. I think that's it. Right. So the tide here is the various channels. If you can get engagement on a channel outside of email, it will help in email. Just like email helps getting engagement on other platforms. But that first email, that's your indicator. So if many of you are struggling right now, look at your first email. See its performance. Look at it. See how it's performing. Okay. I promised you all 3 resources where you could check and get some more benchmarks based on research done by email marketing companies. 1 is MailChimp, 2 is HubSpot, and 3 is Campaign Monitor. So the links that I'm going to add, remember, automationbridge.com/podcast. You'll be able to access this episode number 23. And I link to all of these, but they go by industry. I'm looking at MailChimps right now, and they've got agriculture and food, arts and artists, computers and electronics, business and finance. They have open rates, average click. Like, let's look at business and finance. Average open rate is 21.56%. Average click, 2.72%. So right on par with what I've seen is 10% of the open rate is the click through. Okay. Campaign Monitor has data from Smart Insights on their website. Here's what they say. Your average email open rate should be between 15 and 25%. Your average click-through rate should be about 2.5%. Your average click to open rate should be about 20 to 30%. So even those metrics are right on spot. And what I'm realizing with a lot of these platforms, they're setting the bar so low, right? Like an average open rate of 15 to 25%. If you're doing segmented sending, I guarantee you're going to be on the higher end or exceeding 25%. I get no doubt in my mind. No doubt. Now, granted, you still have to write the content in the email and the subject line and all of that. You still have to do your due diligence. But if you do that well, I guarantee you'll see higher results. Okay. And then HubSpot, they've got email open rates by industry, so you can see how you stack up. I believe they've got, they have all kinds of data in here, like bullet points. But let me just, the average open rate that they're seeing, where's finance? Finance is 40%. So check that out. HubSpot is reporting 40% average open rate for finance, while MailChimp for business and finance is reporting 21.56%. That's very interesting to me. It's almost like somebody ain't telling the truth, right? Somebody's fluffing, somebody's padding the numbers, or perhaps this is the difference in the platform's ability to deliver. I told you I've used HubSpot and been impressed with their ability to really push out a massive amount of emails. So maybe this is telling. I don't know. I'm not making that judgment on this podcast right now, but the link is in there. Okay. So HubSpot will let you know from a sample of over 119,000 emails. The average open rate for autos and vehicle category was 35%. So HubSpot does give you a bit more information. But if you want to take what I've just mentioned in my experience and then couple it with the MailChimp, HubSpot, and Campaign Monitor, what you're going to realize is that you'll be able to start making a case. And this is especially good for those of you who offer automation services. You'll be able to start to speak intelligently to the and set expectations for email. CEOs, entrepreneurs, owners, you're going to get I hope you're listening, because now you can get the proper expectation and stop thinking that you're going to send one email to everybody and make $1 million or even make any money, honestly. Okay. Because with email, this is the key, everybody. Personalization is everything. Campaign Monitor mentioned this. They said personalized emails are 26% more likely to be opened. Now, you can't personalize if you're not capturing the right information. So the platform that allows you to capture the correct information and send emails at a high level of deliverability, given that you're doing everything that you know to do and you're being realistic with the expectations of performance, that's the formula we're looking for. So for those of you who maybe this is your first time hearing how email performance works, like the first email being the setting the ceiling and so on and so forth, feel free to download my free course on engagement marketing. And this details how to get engagement with your emails as early as possible and keep your list clean of the tire kickers. Remember when I said oftentimes how someone starts is how they finish? There's a way for you to determine nice and early, are you an engager or not, and just remove them, because you're paying for every seat in your CRM. You're paying for every seat. Okay. So to get that course, you can go to automationbridge.com/engagement. automationbridge.com/engagement. That'll take you to that course. So who needed to hear this, everybody? I know it wasn't just you. You need to share this with somebody. Somebody's been emailing all wrong with the wrong expectations. Just all off. Bring them back. Get them back right. Okay. Welcome them back to the family of responsible email senders who get results. Tell them their card is not revoked. It was just temporarily suspended, but they're welcome back. Okay. Who needs to hear that? Whose business relies on email, or whose business could benefit more greatly from email? Right? Some people need to stop doing what they're doing and do what I've outlined here. Other people need to start from here. If you know either of those people, share this with them. And if you found value in today's episode, please leave a 5-star rating and review. For first-time listeners, you've made it to the end. This is the time. Welcome. This is my formal invitation. Come on, subscribe. Every Thursday, new episodes come out. This is a weekly podcast. Set your clock to it. Oh, All Systems Go got a new podcast out. It must be Thursday, right? So this episode and all other episodes and their show notes will be available at automationbridge.com/podcast. And if you're looking to learn more about systematizing your business, I'd like to invite you to register for my most recent masterclass that covers the fundamental systems every business needs in order to scale efficiently. You need to know these systems because these are where you're going to start automating to remove yourself from your business the fastest. So that masterclass is found at automationbridge.com/systems. That's systems with an S. And until next time and next episode, automate responsibly, my friends.